to Broad's Talking Politics, and today I have the rare pleasure of recording in person. I'm with 4 students from Chicago FUERTE, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So do you each want to just say a little bit about who you are and take it from there?
All right. So I'm Diego Garcia, and I'm a Latino student from Brighton Park, a community in the southwest side of Chicago. And I started off with activism by helping out at my church. And there was a summer camp that started 3 years ago. And the main goal was to get kids out of the streets and doing something productive, like learning about their culture, their music, where their parents came from. And that's where I started 3 years ago. But recently, after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, I helped organize 50 teenagers from my community to travel to Washington, D.C. for March for Our Lives.
Okay, excellent.
I'm Emily Villa-Gomez. I'm Hispanic, and I started with activism when I joined my church and started listening to everyone talking about gun violence and how we want to make a change.
I'm Nicole, and I'm also part of the summer camp that Diego was talking about, and we're just trying to get kids out of the street, to not be part of any gangs.
My name is Hidalgo. I went to March for Our Lives with the other 50 students. I went over there with the Parkland students, and we help over there in the church ever since what happened in Parkland. I've been involved in activism a lot, but then after what happened in Parkland, I was something must be done to help out. To spread the message around the neighborhood that it happens around in Chicago too, not just over there in Florida and things like that.
Okay, great. And can I ask if any of you have been personally affected by gun violence?
Both of my classmates got shot and killed.
Well, in our community, there's been a lot of shootings, and there's been 184 shootings. People who have been shot and killed in Chicago since this year started.
Yeah, and so Chicago's in the news a lot, right, about this idea that Chicago is a violent city. I want to make sure that we're giving an accurate representation, but not feeding into the idea either that Chicago is somehow more dangerous than a lot of other places. So let's talk about that for a little bit. What are your thoughts about that? Do you feel like the media is sort of overstating the case about Chicago? Do you think that Chicago is a very violent place, or that the U.S. is a violent place and that there's a gun problem everywhere?
I think that gun violence has been around for so much time, but people have just started speaking about it because of the Parkland students, which I'm thankful for. But not many people are talking about all the great leaders that are rising up in Chicago. We just started an organization called Chicago Strong, and students from Englewood, from North Lawndale, from Brighton Park, and other communities in Brighton Park are coming together. And I don't see that on the news. I just see all the crime that's been happening.
And so, what are your next steps as a group? What you've talked about, some activism you've done and the summer camps, but what would you like to do as a group to bring attention to the violence?
So we're doing this hunger strike starting on July 2nd, and 2 young people from some neighborhood in Chicago, which is either the southwest side or the west side, they're going to be doing a hunger strike, and during each week they will be dedicating it to a certain issue, like banning assault weapons, banning bump stocks, gang violence, funding our schools. And we want to shine light on those issues. But what we want to get out of this hunger strike is for Rodney Davis and John Shimkus, which are the 2 politicians that are taking the most money from the NRA in Illinois, to sign the No NRA Money Pledge, which would make them swear and promise that they're not going to take any more money that's feeding into the gun violence that's going around in our nation.
Okay. And so the idea of the hunger strike is to bring attention and bring sort of pressure on these politicians then?
Yes.
What do you hope that these politicians taking a pledge that they won't take NRA money, how do you see that as influencing gun laws in a way that will hopefully reduce violence?
I think politicians have really started taking a different perspective in the lives in our nation because they started prioritizing their wallets instead of our lives, and we want them to realize that our lives are worth more than any amount of money and any gun in our country.
Do you see in your communities a lot of politicians or political candidates? Are they talking to you? Are they engaging with you about your issues?
Politician Raymond Lopez, the alderman of Brighton Park, he hasn't really elaborated about the community more. It's more of the church doing more things on a separate side, helping out with the summer camp and all those things to get kids off the street. And they don't really acknowledge what happens around there. In the news, they try to cover it a little more because it's really bad things happening and it shouldn't be happening around there. It's been lowered down after a while because of all the programs and everything, but it's still there.
Yeah.
It still affects the young people in the community.
So a lot of people have been focusing on Congress with the push for gun laws and things like that. Do you think that that's sort of the right level for us to be targeting, or do you think that aldermen, state senators are people we should also be pressuring?
When we talked to the kids from Selma Douglas that we met that time, they were like, you have to start out small, start out voting in your own communities, and then go big. You start out small, your alderman and everything, get your people from your community register to vote, and then you go up more and it starts doing a bigger effect over time, over the years.
Yeah, we also think it's important to speak on a federal level because we all know that Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws, but Indiana and Wisconsin don't. So people could just drive 15 minutes across the border, get some assault weapons, and then create some shooting or kill people in Chicago. So that's why just local laws don't count. We need federal laws.
Do any of you think you might run for office at some point when you're a little older? Are any of you old enough to vote yet?
No.
In 2 years.
2 years. Okay, but soon. And you will all be voting, right?
Yes.
All right. Do any of you see politics in your future?
I think we have one student who might run for alderman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's 18 years old. I hope that sometime in the future I become a mayor or something to kind of shine light on inner cities, not only in Chicago, but all around the country, because we don't see many Latinos. Yeah, we don't see many Latinos in office.
And do you think because of that the issues that are facing Latinos are not addressed as much?
Yeah, I think a lot of people only speak on stuff that they relate to or things they're being affected to. So if there's no one in office that we see that reflects us, then we won't see those problems being fixed because no one's talking about them.
Because if someone doesn't go through the same struggle, they don't want to fix it because it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. And so do you think that similarly money in politics is a problem with representation as well? Do you think that, so we have groups like the NRA that are giving a lot of money. Do you think that part of the answer would be groups that are representing Latino interest also giving money, or do you think the answer is to get money out of politics?
I think that a lot of people in our communities don't vote because they think that voting doesn't matter. But when elected officials see that people in our communities aren't voting, they think that we don't care about what's happening in our communities, so we don't get enough resources. And people need to realize that the more they vote, the more resources we get in our communities.
Do you think that there is a way to get more people in the communities voting? Are people starting to realize that this is a problem? Are you hearing kids your age talk about whether they'll be voting in the future?
We hope we see more people our age registering to vote and voting, but we're going to start off by educating people on who they're voting for and
what their purpose is.
Yeah, what their purpose for voting is, because a lot of people just don't care about who's running their community or what they stand for, and they really need to start thinking about what people run their community.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to the hunger strike. We sort of passed by that, but let's talk about it a little more. So how did this idea come about for a hunger strike?
So we realized that all these small protests we've been having outside of Federal Plaza or the March for Lives, all these small things weren't really getting our politicians' attention. So we said, if small protests aren't getting their attention, then we go radical and we starve ourselves so that we can really get their attention and tell them what we want.
Are any of you participating?
Yes.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what are your thoughts sort of going into it? Are you worried about participating, or are you feeling sort of empowered by the idea of this kind of...
I feel like we shouldn't be worried about it, but at the same time we should, because we're putting pressure on them, seeing like us teenagers starving ourselves for something, like for a good cause. And, like, I feel like we're prepared for it.
And just the fact that someone is shot and killed every 3 hours in Chicago, and no one is really making a big deal out of it, even though they should, like, really needs to be amplified even more, because people don't realize that gun violence isn't normal, and shootings aren't normal in our country either, and not in our cities as well. So I think by doing a hunger strike, people will really start realizing that if we're harming ourselves by doing this, we really care about this issue.
And so if people are listening to this and want to help out, help amplify this message, what would you hope that they would do to help amplify this?
Well, I think the thing we want people to do the most is vote and know who they're voting for. Mm-hmm. We're doing this hunger strike dedicated to Rodney Davis and John Shimkus, because they received over $45,000 in total from the NRA. So because of that, a lot of people don't know who they're voting for. So we want people to realize that they should really start caring about the people that represent them.
And you guys have Twitter or Facebook that they can help amplify the message as well?
We have a Twitter account for our hunger strike. It's @Starve4Change, and it's *4Change. And our group's Twitter, which is located in Brighton Park, is Chicago FUERTE.
So you also have an event coming up on July 7th. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Like that day that Mike Flavor spoke at the Peace March is like, we're being disturbed so much, like all the people and everything, so it's time to disturb the politicians by like shutting down the whole highway, like getting their attention that we're doing that we're done with our like young people getting killed and everything, because it's not fair that they don't put as much attention they do as they do in other things.
Mm-hmm. So your plan is to shut down the Dan Ryan. That's a really big expressway here in Chicago. And so the goal is to get people to really sort of sit up and pay attention. Is the city helping with this? Have you been in contact with the city about this plan, and are they supporting it?
I know that the police has told Father Mike Flager that they have to pull out at least 200 police officers from our communities in order to go in the highway to protect us from like the cars or anyone who wants to harm us. But no one has really brought that up when there's been like marches for St. Patrick's Day or whatever other marches our city has. No one cares about how many police officers are being pulled out for that. And when it's an issue like gun violence, people don't want to acknowledge that it's been happening so much, and it's a big issue that we should be talking about.
Yeah, and certainly if you can shut down the Dan Ryan for any period of time, that's going to be something that will make the news, is something that people will talk about. And I know some people have talked about, why do protests want to shut down the streets? And so the thing that I hear the most is that it's trying to highlight the people's lives are disrupted by gun violence, and that, you know, if you're disrupting people's lives for this, it's helping them understand how much of an impact that has. Does that sound to you guys like what your thinking is with this?
Mm-hmm. I think people don't want to care about gun violence until they're being affected by it. So once they know that they're going to be late to work because kids and priests and people are just shutting down the highway and they're going to be late to work, that's when they start caring about it. So I think people should really open their eyes and care about each other.